Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk a little bit about the movie Elio, which I saw. It's a new movie out right now. It is from Disney and Pixar, and there's mixed reviews on it. It got 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, but at the same time, it's kind of eh to me. It was a pretty good movie, animation wise, looks wise. It looks like a great film, but I feel like the story was kind of lacking. Um, Interestingly enough, I saw this with Victoria, and she really liked it. Uh, she she felt that it was a different message. It was a message more that resonated with her. Um, her likes and desires. Me personally, I saw the beginning of Pixar. I've seen Pixar do great things. I was there when Pixar was born in November of 1995 when they released their first movie, Toy Story. And I witnessed the Toy Story trilogy, which is one of the best trilogies in the history of film. So I had mixed reviews about it. What is it about? Well, it is directed by Madeline Sharafin, Dominique Shi, and Adrian Molana. And it is about Elio Solis, the character of Elio Solis, a young boy. He's obsessed with science. Basically, his aunt Olga, who is portrayed, the voice is portrayed by Oscar winner Zoe Saldana. She's a hot property right now since she won the Oscar last year, but she portrays his aunt. He's automatically an orphan. Like Disney and Pixar love to do this. They love to have orphan characters. We talked about how oftentimes in Disney movies, Lisa and I have talked about it, how in Disney movies the the uh, the mother is often the dead one, but here they're both dead. You know what I mean? So he's in a really precarious position, but he's obsessed with space, and his aunt is in the Air Force. She works with the space stuff, so she takes him to an air space museum where he gets he gets in contact with extraterrestrials, aliens. And initially, they don't believe that he's in contact with these aliens because they visit him briefly, and then they don't actually come back until much later. So everybody thinks he's making it up. So he's trying to contact these aliens, trying to connect with them in a certain way, and he goes to space camp. And in the camp, he is bullied by other kids. You know what I mean? And that's what this story really centers on: bullying and otherness of. Um, and he wants nothing more than to escape his current reality. So it's kind of depressing in a way if you think about it. I mean, here's this kid who he lost his parents. He's living with his aunt, and like he's he doesn't want to live in this world. Like that song by SZA, Saturn. Well, that song, if that song were encapsulated into a movie, that would be this film. You know what I mean? Like this kid wants to live in another world, in another dimension, because he can't stand living in his own world, right? So eventually, he sneaks out, and eventually the aliens do come in contact with him, and you meet several different alien characters. One of which is a large tub of liquid, a sassy tub of liquid called Oh, right? She's one of the main characters, and she's kind of like the protagonist. But he gets cloned, and the clone is sent back to Earth, and everybody thinks that he's the one. So he's the clone. So basically, um this is like in a way like what I saw automatically. What I saw, what I made the connection with watching this was the Wizard of Oz. In the Wizard of Oz, it, it's like a modern day Wizard of Oz because Dorothy is an orphan. She has no parents. She's raised by her aunt, right? But she has dreams of escaping her current reality. And she is taken to another world. She is taken over the rainbow, as it were, to Oz. But when she's taken over the rainbow to Oz, she realizes it's then in Oz that she realizes that there's no place like home. And that's similar uh, to this kid, to Elio, is that he later returns briefly, right? He returns briefly, and he's able to see his aunt searching for him. And when he's able to see the aunt searching for him, that's when he realizes that he has much more at home than what we would have in space. I mean, and it gets into a lot of deeper themes because you have one scene, for example, where Ilio actually sacrifices himself and he's almost dying, right? Again, Pixar delves into heavy things. So basically, what this kid is saying is that he was bullied to such a degree that it made him want to leave Earth, and he almost thought about sacrificing himself to save his newly found friends, these other aliens. You know, the cast of characters of aliens. You know that we get to know, especially this one called Gludron. So, what I didn't make the connection with was, and Biggie made this connection. What I didn't make the connection with was this is an allegory, much like many people in 1939 interpreted Wizard of Oz to be an allegory of. This is an allegory of LGBTQ identity. Um, there's been discussions around Disney and Pixar and children's studio properties, which I don't really think Pixar is basically a studio property necessarily. But you know, kids property studio necessarily. Some of the things they do, some of the themes they do are really adult, right? But uh, discussions regarding like Lisa and I watched. We tried to watch. We tried to watch it in my house one time, and we tried to watch it in Lisa's house. The Buzz Lightyear movie to catch the scene. I don't know if Lisa remembers this, but to catch the scene where uh oh wow, that's cool, David. To catch the scene where um the two lesbians are kissing in the background in the Buzz Lightyear movie, and we couldn't catch it. We couldn't sit through it because the Buzz Lightyear standalone film was atrocious, and I was a huge Buzz Lightyear fan. Like I said, 1995 Thanksgiving. Oh, okay, cool, David. 1995 Thanksgiving. I went to see it. I went to see Pixar with my grandma and my uncle. Um, that year, and Toy Story blew me away. I was obsessed with Toy Story. I graduated sixth grade. My aunt bought me the Genesis game Toy Story. I had the Toy Story toys. I was obsessed. I love Toy Story. Buzz Lightyear was my favorite character because I love space stuff, right? So, and I like the Buzz Lightyear cartoon to infinity and beyond, right? So, uh, you know, I want to see Buzz Lightyear, but a Buzz Lightyear standalone film was it didn't do it for me. So with all that said, there's discussion around LGBTQ representation in kids movies because LGBTQ identity from an outsider's perspective, not from an insider like somebody who is gay, but from an outsider's perspective, there is homophobia attached to it as well. But I think that uh, that part of the reason is many people, many heterosexual people, see uh, these identities, lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, as sexual identities, and they feel like putting that in kids' movies is pushing sexuality on children, and they feel like that is very dangerous. You know what I mean? So, but LGBTQ people don't see it that way. LGBTQ people see it as they are finally being able to express themselves, finally being able to tell their experiences, you know, in a way that's normalizes their types of relationships, men with men, women with women. And but see, I'm of the opinion I don't even think a lot of heterosexual stuff should be included in kids movies. They're kids movies. They're not meant to glorify sex. What they're talking about is like, okay, what about not just sex, but like relationships, right? Is that acceptable? So that's been a debate with regards to conservatives and Disney. We talked about it when Ron DeSantis was running for president. He was basically going to war. I mean, he was the governor of Florida running for president of the United States, going to war. We have a video on it. We also have a video, Lisa and I, of chronicling each and every Pixar movie and about the Pixar theory, right? On this channel, in the archives. So he was going to war with Disney about this LGBTQ stuff, right? This was around the time when the Buzz Lightyear movie came out. So, um, seeing as that's the case, seeing as there's a lot of talk about this, they weren't going to put an openly LGBTQ character in their stories because of the backlash. So they had to somehow sneak it in with oblique references. Just like in 1939, the movie Wizard of Oz was basically an allegory too for homosexuality. For the longest, in the gay subculture, gay men would use the euphemism "a friend of Dorothy," basically to describe themselves, describe their relationship status. When somebody would question their relationship status, it wasn't appropriate at the time, to say that one is homosexual or one is gay or one is queer or whatever, right? So they would use the euphemism "friend of Dorothy." So, and this had a lot to do with a lot of the themes in Wizard of Oz of alienation, um, especially people that came from like a rural background, like Dorothy in Kansas, and also the fact that Judy Garland was a supporter of gay rights, and when she was married to a closeted gay man in Peter Minnelli. So, uh, and you know, but you could see it within Wizard of Oz, like you could see it here. So, but they try to like sneak it in subtly. You know what I mean? Like he's not in the movie. He's not picked on because he's gay. He's picked on because he's a geek and he's into space stuff and he's to himself and he has a quirky personality. But it's sort of like X-Men. X-Men really wasn't talking about race, but it was talking about race. X-Men was dealing with mutants, and they were using the word mutants as a substitute for the word black or the word Jewish, right? Because they were speaking about discrimination, racial discrimination, ethnic discrimination, any kind of discrimination that was based on a part of you that you couldn't control. You could even fit LGBTQ rights into that. But it was done at a time in the 1960s where they were having this debate. So they positioned two different characters. Magneto, who is a person that he felt he was wronged by the humans, put in the concentration camps during World War II, and he was maligned and he was mistreated, and he hated humans and he wanted to destroy them. So he was the villain. And Professor X, he was Magneto was like the Malcolm X character. Professor X was like the Martin Luther King character because he wanted to reconcile with the humans. He wanted humans to understand mutants and mutants to get along together. You know what I mean? And that was the intent by Stan Lee when he wrote it. Just like how Kal-El, Superman, was basically an allegory for Eastern European Jews. It was written by two Eastern European Jews. He's Kal-El, which is a vaguely Hebrew sounding name. The suffix El stands for God in Hebrew, right? So, and he's coming from a planet that was destroyed, just like the Yiddish world, the shtetl of Eastern Europe was destroyed, you know, uh, during the Holocaust or before the Holocaust, the Kishinev pogroms and other pogroms, like we talked about on this channel. So I say all that to say a lot of popular media will sneak these sort of references in. And given that Adrian Molina is a gay person, it's going to reflect his personal experience. The character is Latino and the character is gay. But the character is not gay, but I'm saying the subtext is sort of gay ostracization, the homophobia from kids. Something like you would see on Glee, for example, but way more subtle, way more hidden, way more oblique, if you will. So, what he learns is that it will get better. The Earth will get better, and given the chance to live with these space people, all the time, much like Dorothy and The Wizard of Oz, he opts to go back to his aunt and live his earthly life and, face his struggles and not run away from them, which is a very brave thing to accomplish, which I think this movie gets that message way better than, say, The Lion King. Because The Lion King was supposed to teach us that Simba was going to face his fears and Simba was going to own up to his mistakes. But then Simba only goes back to Pride Rock to find out that he didn't make any mistakes, that he didn't kill Mufasa, Scar did. So what's he taking responsibility of? He's neglecting the philosophy of Hakuna Matata, like whatever will be, que sera, sera, to embrace this responsibility as a king, which I guess that's the message that he's preparing him for this leadership role. So he has to put his personal feelings aside and put the feelings of the other lions ahead of him. But I always found it weird that he doesn't really face his fears, right? He doesn't really atone for what he did because he didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Whereas this kid, he didn't do anything either, but he's learning to face his bullies and face the bullies head on, that you can't escape your bullies by going into outer space. Now, the outer space motif is crazy. You know what I mean? But I get it. You know what I mean? I get it because, when you're a kid, you dream about and you have a rough childhood. You get abused. You get like and Jenny and Forrest Gump molested. You know what I mean? You fantasize about what life would be like in another world where you're the star, like your quirkiness and your uniqueness and your unicornism is appreciated and not maligned or made fun of or teased or ostracized for it. That could be imagining yourself as a champion wrestler if you like wrestling, or imagining yourself as a Jedi if you're a Star Wars fan. But if you're into space stuff and the space motif that they use, that will be your escape. And to have it actually happen is crazy. You might think you're tripping on LSD if that were the case. You know what I mean? But yeah. Uh, Pixar did pretty well with this. I don't know what a lot of the backlash is with this. You know what I mean? What I found falling flat, the overall message was good, but what I found really falling flat was a lot of the dialogue. Like the minute to minute dialogue wasn't all that good. I think Pixar has come up with a formula where they'll come out with a story, they'll use the motif of a cartoon, and they'll hit you heavy in the feels, and then you have to process that. It doesn't necessarily make for a good movie, like nuts and bolts type shit, but it it provides a good plot. So hitting in the emotional feels like Pixar movies often do, I feel like uh, is good. You know what I mean? Is acceptable. You know what I mean? So uh, that's my opinion of Elo. Uh, should you go see it? Yeah. I mean, it definitely is a movie that resonated with me, and really is appropriate. I would say for this time of year. Peace, guys.